Okay, welcome back, folks. Let's start the next case. This is case number 21.
It's a really feel-good story.
Riders blocked.
The new company operating BeatStats is not in compliance with city guidelines. Is their contract now in jeopardy?
Old Town's certainly seeing a lot of action, Matthew. What with an ancient city unearthed by the earthquake and a strange cult recruiting new members. I'm worried about this Higher Truth bunch. It's weird enough they believe the Dream Life satellite is a messenger from the heavens. But we've also seen some of their devotees give up their life savings to join. Sounds like a scam if you ask me. At least the mysteries offered by ancient Zerda are better for the soul. With all of the ancient ruins to explore, the historical community is having a field day.
My name is Kevin Nick, and I am
Speaking of field days, Matthew, there's an exhibition of Zerdan artifacts at the Grimsboro Museum. Apparently it's not to be missed. Zerdan artifacts? You've seen the ancient ruins firsthand, right, Matthew? I've been itching to see it for myself. Well, I say you deserve a break. Why don't you take the afternoon off and visit the exhibition? Really, Chief? That'd be great. Are you coming, Matthew? Let's go over to the museum.
St. Francis Healthcare System is creating something new. The St. Francis Cooper Village in Manila. The former hospital campus is being transformed into a health and wellness center for seniors and their caregivers, featuring a skilled nursing room and an array of physicians in different specialties, with patient plans for assisted living and independent living, and a senior community center. Come today for more information. St. Francis Healthcare System, creating healthy communities for Hawaii's families.
Oh no.
KMTV.com News
Sorry.
sponsored by Homeworld. Get updated news, weather, and traffic wherever you go from the KMTV News and Weather app or live stream at KMTV.com. News happens all the time, and so do
Got it.
accidents. Sponsored by Recovery Health Center. Helping you recover.
There we go, night vision goggles, Snape,
Redwing Shoes has the expertise and experience to custom fit
dated
Redwing
poster.
terrain, factoring in the tasks you perform most.
Here we are, found the helmet.
Redwing Shoes has over 30 years of local experience finding the fit and features to make your job easier and safer. Visit Redwing Shoes at Maui Plaza and now at Mid-Center.
Oh my god, Matthew. Some people think museums are pretty dead at the best of times, but I didn't expect to find a body here. And you don't have to be Martine to know this guy's been murdered. Look at that head wound. Wait, you're right, Matthew. According to that poster you found, this man is named Reggie Liotta. Apparently the victim is the author of a new book called Zerda's Return. Obviously, Mr. Liotta's book has something to do with the unearthed city of Zerda, and he was appearing at a meet and greet event. Recovering the faded information on that poster might offer up a lead. And are those night vision goggles? What are they doing in a museum? Unlocking them is a good place to start. Our plans for an afternoon at the museum will have to be shelved, Matthew. We've got work to do.
Longtime Beach Boys protesting when Dive Oahu was awarded contracts at Kuhio Beach because of one company's being pushed out was in business since 1972. One electric company is removing a utility pole along East Manoa Road between Ko'aniani Way and Ke'ama Place tomorrow. Work runs from 8:30 in the morning to 2:30 in the afternoon.
18 hours. I'll see you guys when that is finished. But first, I'm gonna get some stars. Just sit tight, folks. All right, let's examine the night vision goggles. I'm pretty sure those are going to be the one. That's going to be the examination one.
Oh, yeah, everything. That's pretty awesome.
SN9.
Like even these guys sound sensational.
5WO.
Well, they didn't sound too shabby on the single.
AKA got the 9.
The top 100 this week.
Jerry Miller. Matthew, those night vision goggles belong to a certain Jerry Miller. Ah, I found him in the database. Mr. Miller's a security guard at the museum. Come on, Matthew, he must be around here somewhere.
Hey. You look great. Oh, thanks. Oh, I feel like a beached whale. How'd it go?
Grooving as usual. Come on, we gotta drop Jessica off and there's still time to catch her next game. Come on.
So, what's this you've got
I guess not. Okay.
He says you're spelling Espanol.
Halt! Who goes there? Could you put that flashlight away? It's the middle of the day. Sorry, force of habit. It's usually dark in here. I normally work the night shift. Well, that explains the night vision goggles, Mr. Miller. We'd like to ask you some questions about the murder of Reggie Liotta. What? That author's been murdered? Are you sure? I know everything that's going on in this museum. I don't let my guard down for a second. He's dead, all right. Is there anything you can tell us about the victim? Not much. I often saw him in the museum researching his book, but he was always well behaved and his credentials checked out. Which I always look into, you know. Don't let this uniform fool you. I'm not just any night watchman. I've read all about every exhibit in this place. I just don't know how a murder could have happened on my watch. So I was right the first time.
What's love got to do with it? You tell me, Max. Last time we saw each other, people was top of the charts with that song. People tell me you're still in Brooklyn. Same from the neighborhood. How would I want to move? Change the scenery? So, you parking cars now instead of steaming? Yeah. Go for verification. Man, actually I own this garage. There's nothing about this. You didn't bring me here.
Here we go. Hosted by Jebediah Cobb.
Back into the music business, Dad.
Look, Matthew, the victim's meet and greet event was held here at the museum. Hosted by the curator, Jebediah Cobb. This Mr. Cobb will definitely be able to tell us more, so let's go find him.
Yeah, I heard boom time. Desi, come on, you know what it takes to get national. Man, play the money, the contacts. I can guarantee you double five by the end of the year.
Welcome to the Grimsboro Museum. Jebediah Cobb, curator extraordinaire, at your service. We're afraid we're here on sad business, Mr. Cobb. We found Reggie Liotta murdered in the auditorium. Good gracious! Murdered? In my museum? How ghastly! What a tragedy! Mr. Liotta was a bright young author, a breath of fresh air in the historical community. Zerda's return hasn't been released yet, and the contents are very hush-hush. But from what I hear, it offers a wonderful new take on the Zerdan culture. And you are hosting a meet and greet event for the book? Indeed. I may be an old fuddy-duddy, but I'm somewhat of an expert on Zerda myself, so I was asked to host the event. There was a small gathering outside the museum's garden just this morning. Mr. Liotta seems perfectly fine. I cannot believe he's dead. We appreciate your time, Mr. Cobb. Meanwhile, I agree, Matthew. Let's check out the museum garden.
Better than the 8-track cartridge. That'll cost. Oh, come on. Come on. It's crazy. 2 days ago, two of the biggest record chains were running more copies of Philadelphia. Then all of a sudden, they want 5 million just to place the record.
I take it that means placing it.
Change my pet back to the mountain goat.
Barry Philomena in the basement. It's gotta be that sleaze or next stand was a dead man last night.
But it strikes me that you guys could do with some advice. You know, I've got a friend in the music business. Maybe you could help.
Aha!
Chill out, man. Go find out. You know who this place for Daniel?
Got it. 1 second. That was great.
My sister Patricia. You think I'm sorry, man. Really. It's just that I worked so hard for this. I don't want to lose it.
Naturally, all the event guests have gone, Matthew, but I see you found some clues. That bag, for example, belonged to the victim. Go ahead and work your magic on that lock. And I agree, Matthew. Those broken stone pieces are curious. Let's put them back together.
Anything, all right? So I hear it's you and Alex now. What are you two gonna get married? Okay, so I can get him on board right now as Max is A&R at $200,000 a year plus a bonus. Forget it. I am trying to do something for you, damn it. And for some reason I can't stop thinking about what we had, baby.
And I'm the only woman who ever walked out on it. Deal with it, Thomas.
Hey, Trisha!
Reggie?
No way I'll be separated from her. We'll see.
Hello, Jessica.
Thank you.
De nada.
Maybe 5 years? You know, he sounds like some of your husband's calendar.
Those stone pieces are a sundial, Matthew, and someone's written the victim's name on it. There's something else written too, but those symbols mean nothing to me. Let's put Gabriel's linguistic skills to work on this sundial.
As little as I know about the music business side.
You know what you like.
It's 3 hours.
I think they have something fresh.
Lock the bag now.
Hey, you got your off work here?
I was fired.
Ouch. Let me guess. Yes,
49949.
Out front, in the invoice and listing section, I told him where he could find it.
2,
Well, you knew he would get him.
4,
Taking him up.
294. There we are.
You know what?
And one more.
Police gonna meet up in number 1 with a bullet. You guys
9,
will make the CD.
7,
You're gonna be rich and famous.
2,
Play it again, Sam.
4, 7.
You were right, Jess. I tell you, it's a special talent with a new language. You better tell them the city's careful.
Now that you've unlocked the victim's bag, Matthew, let's search through his belongings.
On the off chance that you're free.
I wouldn't miss it on the world. Besides, it gives me a chance to find out what the Machiavelli and plot line brings to the music business office. 7:30?
Need anything else? This is from book program records from scratch.
Aha! Steve Roy, publisher, business card. Find anything useful among the victim's belongings, Matthew? Ah, that business card looks promising. It's for a certain Steve Roy, a publisher. He must be the one releasing the victim's book. I'm with you, Matthew. Let's find out what Mr. Roy can tell us about Reggie Liotta.
I want you two flunkies out of here right now.
Mom, let me handle this, please.
Excuse me, Mom.
Desi, think about what we discussed.
It didn't have to, man. Like I said before, Alex is my man. There's your answer, now get out. What about you, little Don? Did you give some thought to Max's offer?
Oh, police officers! You must be here about Reggie's murder. I just heard this terrible news.
Patricia?
Yes, Mr. Roy. We take it you were Mr. Liotta's publisher?
He told me they were
Correct. Zerto's Return will be my biggest publication to date.
Something like that.
My operation is very small, so I was honored Reggie chose me to release his first book. This could be my big break. Is there anything you can tell us about Mr. Liotta? Anyone who might have wanted to harm him? On the contrary, everyone is eagerly awaiting Zerto's return. The book offers exciting new insights into the ancient culture. But now that Reggie's dead, I don't know what's going to happen. See you guys when both of these are finished. Okay folks, we've returned. I'm going to get the results of the sundial first. Not too civic cool, Matthew. Excuse me, Gabriel? You're not delirious, are you? Delirious with excitement, Matthew. I was speaking Zerdan. That's what those symbols are on that sundial for language. You see, Zerdan writing is much like Egyptian hieroglyphs, symbols representing a word, a sound, or even an entire phrase. From a linguistic standpoint, Zerda's reemergence is a historian's dream. So much can be learned about a culture by analyzing their language. This is genuinely fascinating, Gabriel, but is it relevant to our investigation? Well, this phrase here is particularly inflammatory. The symbols are a Zerdan proverb which reads, "The proud will be crushed in body and soul." Crushed? Matthew, given that phrase is addressed to Reggie Liotta, whose head was bashed in, this must be a threat from his killer. The writing's on the wall, Matthew. We're looking for a killer who speaks the Zerdan language.
And these photos are just released from the USGS.
Now the crack just east of the parking lot, we're told about 10 inches wide there. When even larger.
And the autopsy now?
Entire parking lot seen here.
I'll never understand people's fascination with history, Matthew. Museums are so drab and tedious. I'm surprised your victim didn't die of boredom. I'll have to disagree with you on that, Martine, but we can debate that later. For now, I assume boredom wasn't the cause of death. No, the victim was killed after being struck with a blunt object, and given that the blow crushed his skull, the murder weapon must be quite heavy. We'll keep our eyes peeled, Martine. Was there anything else you found that might help us identify the killer? Well, I found a slight discoloration on the victim's neck, which turned out to be an allergic reaction to hand sanitizer. There were traces of it on the victim's skin. Given Mr. Liotta's allergy, the logical explanation is that the hand killer, most likely checking the victim's pulse to make sure he was dead. Well, they can't wash their hands of this crime, Matthew. We're looking for a killer who uses hand sanitizer.
It's still floating into the ocean, sending this plume of rays thousands of feet into the sky, and poisonous gases that find particles of
Don't let me, folks.
drifting to communities downwind. This is what used to be Colombia vacation land. This entire area has changed in just a matter of...
Contrary to Martine's opinion, our day at the museum has been anything but boring, Matthew. The murder of an up-and-coming author has kept us on our toes. From what we've learned so far, Reggie Liotta's book, Zerda's Return, offers new insights into the ancient culture. Jebediah Cobb, the museum's curator, hosted a Meet the Author event this morning outside in the garden. The victim's publisher, Steve Roy, said the book's release is highly anticipated, but he's worried the victim's murder could jeopardize its success. And then there's that security guard, Jerry Miller, who, despite claiming to know everything that's going on in the museum, knows nothing about the murder. We have unearthed some clues, Matthew, but we must keep digging. I hate to interrupt, Matthew, but you won't believe this. I just received an email from the victim. OMG. We'll find out what that email is in Chapter 2. Don't go anywhere. Alright folks, we've returned. Let's start Chapter 2 of Writer's Blocked. We just found out that Kathy got an email from the victim. What? How could a dead man send an email, Kathy? And why would it be sent to you? Well, Alex has been encouraging me to broaden my horizons, so I've been following Reggie Liotta's blog about the Zerdans. And I just received his e-bulletin. I traced the location, and the email originated at an underground cistern, a Zerdan excavation site. Let's go find out what's going on, Matthew. Put on your boots. We're heading underground.
Since Friday night.
5 days. Why would somebody report me?
Figured somebody got lucky and I'm in a different car.
That sounds really hard.
That does.
Yeah, you get a lot of money out of me. Yeah, sure.
To your left? That's what we're trying to find out.
Yeah, redhead. Good looking. I think they're having an affair.
Remember when you asked us to
I definitely This is Dean.
Here we go, choose settings.
Chance Alice decided to walk away from her.
He retired a year. Nobody walks away from a 20-year pension. Good for him.
Isn't this fantastic, Matthew? Exploring the ruins of a long-lost civilization. And look, Matthew, that's Reggie Liotta's phone. I wonder what he was doing down here. Let's crack that phone's password. Maybe this is where that email originated. And what's this map you picked up, Matthew? Someone's printed a floor plan of this chamber. We better give this map a good dusting. It might have been left here by the victim. Alright. Five, 599. Seven, 5597. There you are. One more. 6, 7, 596.
Well, that's for food.
Alright, Matthew, let's send the victim's phone to Kathy. Maybe she can solve the mystery of the posthumous email.
But if he was having an affair with a married woman, he voted for someone wanting him to vanish.
Police phone records. You can't match that face with the phone number.
I already made a request for the subpoena.
There we go. This floor plan is from a company called Laura Crosby Tours, Matthew. If this Laura Crosby is running guided tours in the cistern, she might have seen the victim. Let's ask her some questions, Matthew.
Someone might have killed his friends and they would be next. Did he say why?
Hi guys, welcome to Ancient Zerta. I hope you packed your bags. We're about to take a journey to the past. Miss Crosby, we just... Yep, that's me. Just call me Laura. Now, if you'll follow the flag, we can... We're not here for a tour. We'd like to ask you about Reggie Liotta, who was murdered this morning. Reggie Liotta, the author? That's awful. He was down here all the time. So you did know the victim? Oh yes, he was so knowledgeable about the Zertans. I really enjoyed talking to him, and the tourists loved it. It's an exciting time to be living in Old Town. Ancient tombs, cisterns, and columns. It's a tour guide's dream. Anyway, a busload of tourists from Pacific Bay just arrived, so unless you're joining us, I gotta run. And I'll see you guys when the unlocked phone is done. See y'all then. Okay, we're turned. Let's get the results of the unlocked phone. Kathy, have you figured out whether that email you received originated from the victim's phone? Absolutely. I accessed the victim's email account, and the email was distributed automatically, which explains how it was sent after Reggie Liotta was murdered. Do you know why the phone was down in that cistern?
Yes.
There's no evidence the phone was tampered with, so it looks like the victim simply misplaced it there.
Attacker came in from the side, swinging from right to left.
Darn it, Matthew, I hate dead ends. While it wasn't a total loss, while examining the victim's phone, I searched his text messages. His most recent message was from a certain Allie Salinger, saying she was with the victim at this morning's meet and greet. Reggie Liotta never read the message, given his phone was in the cistern, but it means this Allie Salinger was one of the last people to see the victim alive, which gives us a new lead. Come on, Matthew, let's go speak with Allie Salinger.
Tap all over, cracking it like an egg. Really take a glass from the clients.
Miss Salinger, Senior Trooper Matthew would like to ask you some questions about Reggie Liotta. We understand you know him? You bet. Reggie and I grew up together. Who'd have thought I'd be friends with a famous author? I'm sorry to say that your friend is dead, Miss Salinger. He's been murdered. What? What? No, this can't be happening. I only just saw Reggie this morning. Did you notice anything out of the ordinary? Anything to indicate something was wrong? Nothing I can remember. When the event was over, Reggie went into the museum and I sanitized my hands after being outside in that garden and left. Reggie always wanted to become an author, but he struggled because his work never received the recognition it deserved. The emergence of Zerta was his big break. I've always been his biggest supporter and was so happy his hard work was finally paying off, and it all ends like this. You have our condolences, Miss Salinger. Meanwhile, Matthew, since Miss Salinger saw the victim go back into the museum hall, let's make another sweep at the crime scene.
Destination. I never skipped class. Where? Just driving along. Just had no idea she was gonna do it. I was hurt, so I took off.
How long had you been friends?
Practically, we both are classmates. Sophocles,
Factory. Here we work together with nature. Our irrigation system, the rain. Our light source, the sun, shakes the leaves with 4,000 hours of sunshine. And when we pick them at the peak of freshness, we put that sunshine into your looked into for that smooth,
Torn photo.
refreshing taste and aroma. The day is coming, making the trip back to the
Oh,
doctor's
vacuum
office.
cleaner is also a clue.
But why go back there when you can stay home with me?
Strong chemo can put you at risk of serious infection, including hospitalizations. And key
Another clue there.
to reduce the risk of infection from 17% to 1%, and 94% decrease.
There we go.
Apply the medication. You must also have the to get you rested the next day, so you can stay home. Neulasta is for certain cancer patients receiving strong chemotherapy. Do not take Neulasta if you're allergic to Neulasta or Neupogen. For rest, explain sometimes.
What's the sticker about, Matthew? Reggie Liotta's Secrets from Beyond the Grave. This was obviously printed out to the murder, but what does it mean? Let's look up that QR code and see what secrets it reveals. That vacuum cleaner wasn't here before earlier, Matthew. Who's been sucking up potential evidence? Let's roll up our sleeves and sift through the cleaner's contents. And those scraps of paper look like a photograph. Let's see if a picture really is worth 1,000 words.
Clear Eyes moisturizes for up to 12 hours of soothing comfort. Trust the #1 eye drop and make the most of your moment. Clear Eyes. Let them see you shine.
Tasting so good, it's just $13.99. Real good greens, chicken tenders, and chicken flavors. For sweet. Who gets the sweet and who gets the sweet? Make a wild guess. She's such a bitch. Summer pies are really tasty.
Had to pause it a little bit. Oh my. That photograph isn't at all what I expected, Matthew. That's the victim and that security guard having, well, enjoying themselves. Jerry Miller claimed he'd only seen the victim at the museum in passing, but he clearly knew Reggie Liotta quite intimately. He owes us an explanation.
So 5 minutes later, just like except the door.
Mr. Miller, you lied when you said you didn't know Reggie Liotta that well. Apparently you were more familiar with his credentials than you let him on. Oh my god, I thought I destroyed that photo. The thing is, Senior Trooper Matthew, Reggie wanted exclusive access to the exhibits for his research, so I let him in after hours in exchange for favors. So you abuse your position as a museum guard for dalliances among the artifacts? Yes, I admit it. It was thrilling at first, flirting in the exhibits, whispering sweet nothings to each other in the Zerdan language. And it's not like Reggie objected to it. In the end, he was the one who kept coming back for more. Eventually, I told him no, that it was too risky, but he wouldn't listen. I made sure to clean the place up, even using hand sanitizer so that I wouldn't damage the artifacts. But if anyone found out we gallivanted in the Neolithic era, I'd be fired. Well, Mr. Miller, I hope you didn't murder Mr. Liotta to hold off his advances. Pretty safe to say that Jerry Miller is gay. But we'll see. I'm not gonna make an assumption like that. Curling throwing a little macaroni too, folks.
Looking good for rape her. Glass slipper. Think that's said that's Princess was a suspect in a rash of breaking rapes as well. They were off to arrest. She said, he's got a faulty transcript. Doesn't receive signals through.
Still got denied anyway.
Yes. You never kill one.
Now through the QR code you scan on that sticker links through to the website of the victim's publisher. Am I reading this right, Matthew? Zerda's Return, Reggie Liotta's first and last publication. Wow, way to capitalize on the victim's death. Steve Roy's clearly milking this for all it's worth. He's even raised the price of Zerda's Return. Mr. Roy was worried the victim's murder would jeopardize the book's success, but that's obviously not the case, which means we need another word with him.
2 o'clock in the afternoon. He's done for the day. So much for employee of the month, huh?
Tom Brody didn't tell us where he is.
Tell me what you want.
The judge said you all right.
The judge had it out to tell me from the beginning. Tom's not good.
Did he come to work yesterday?
Yeah, comes to work every day.
I'll be with you in a minute, Senior Trooper Matthew, just putting on some hand sanitizer. Dirty hands are the least of your worries, Mr. Roy. We've seen your website, how you're capitalizing on Mr. Liotta's murder. Oh, right. What can I say, Senior Trooper Matthew? Publishing is a cutthroat industry. And although interest in Zerda is high, it's still a niche subject. But a dead author makes for wonderful publicity. The Zerdans had a saying, Chiot Oshirama Skaksis, which means death comes to us all. Well, this murder came right on time, making Zerda's Return a bestseller. It all seems pretty convenient, not to mention heartless. One could say that it's an opportunity of your own devising. If you're implying that I killed Reggie, Senior Trooper Mountain, you're grossly mistaken.
Maybe both.
What's okay, flames.
Uniforms on the judge and flying around the car. Yeah, that's where he used to come in back when I was born.
Alright.
Teach him how manners, just didn't get the sense of himself. It was a lot of times
There's blood on the green ribbon you found on that vacuum cleaner, Matthew. If that blood is the victim's, then this green ribbon is evidence. Let's get it to the lab.
Asked him out on his head, told him everything. The guy can talk to Shield. So there'll be 3 minutes. So call me Bird.
I'll see you guys when this is over. Thought there was another one to come, but that's okay. I'll see you guys when this is over. Okay, we have returned. Let's get the results of the bloody ribbon from Rupert. It's fortunate you picked up this green ribbon, Matthew. Sometimes so much information can be gleaned from a single piece of evidence. So you've confirmed that blood is a match for the victim. Indeed I have. But the most interesting part is what this ribbon is. I recognize this ribbon as a special adornment worn by members of the Grimsboro Historical Society. But who does this ribbon belong to, Rupert? Well, I asked Kathy to check the Society's membership records, and Reggie Liotta wasn't on it. Logic, therefore, dictates if the victim wasn't a member, it means the killer belongs to the Grimsboro Historical Society. But that's not all. I took the liberty of cross-checking the membership list with the suspects you've spoken to, and 3 names came up. Jebediah Cobb, Jerry Miller, and Steve Roy also recently joined. Excellent, Rupert. We'll add that to their profiles. With this clue in the bag, Matthew, the killer will be history before you know it.
Clients walk in, they're able to feel like part of the family.
Custom-made has hundreds of products for your business and free shipping.
Looks like Jebediah Cobb is still in the clear. But we'll see.
My dad, he comes from the southern coast of Ireland.
I hope you don't mind coming back down here, Matthew. It's so beautiful, I wanted to have another look. But you're right, we still have Reggie Liotta's murder to solve. We've met the victim's lifelong friend, who seems devastated by the news of Mr. Liotta's murder. And Laura Crosby, who runs tours down here, who said the victim often shared useful information about Zerda. Then there's Jerry Miller, who claims the victim became careless with their secret rendezvous in the museum. And don't get me started on that slimy publisher Steve Roy exploiting the victim's murder to sell more books. As far as he's concerned, Reggie Liotta is worth more dead than alive. But which of them actually did the deed? Wait, what's happening, Matthew? Oh boy. We'll see you guys for Chapter 3. Don't go anywhere, folks. Okay, we have returned. Let's start Chapter 3 of Writer's Blocked. This was what we left off on. Wait, is the ceiling leaking, Matthew? Oops. Shoot.
Did you tell Cecilia straight?
Wait, is the ceiling leaking, Matthew?
Did you tell Cecilia?
Oh my god, the roof could collapse any minute, any second. Matthew, if you insist we search the cistern for more clues, we better make it snappy.
Prosecution. That's no one. What do I get in return?
Nothing.
If I refuse.
We'll hold you in contempt of court.
I'm already sorry to pay my sentences. Contempt of court's hardly gonna make it worse. You leave me. Well, you wouldn't be here telling me about the Tuesday night. Possibility of parole. Transfer.
foot of the federal prison system. But that's you, let accommodation altogether, let a class occupant. It's a win-win.
Oh. Dang, I thought that was a clue. I thought this was a clue, rather. Poison bottle, paper coat, plastic cup. And the hat.
We're gonna be a great team, Rhode Island.
Oh, but I still got the first star anyway.
There he is.
We love you, Robert.
Got the first star.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Absolutely.
Matthew, I hope this recording device is worth hanging around while this place falls apart. Let's crack that password at the station. And look, Matthew, an advanced manuscript of Zerda's return. But somebody scrawled "What about me" across it. A sample of that pink goo might tell us who. So let's return to the office. And what are you two doing here? We've got to get out of this place. Come with me, Senior Trooper Matthew. There's a passage Reggie Liotta showed me. Finally, something that thoughtless jerk said is actually useful. Thoughtless jerk? You'll have to explain that to us, Miss Crosby, but we'd better do that topside.
To express themselves. No one had the emotional fortitude to do it until Cecilia.
Did you tell her to buy the GHB?
I wouldn't do that.
Did you tell her to get the knife?
Each artist's tools are their own.
And I'm gonna get some stars to sit tight, folks. Alright, let's talk to Laura Crosby about that insult to Reggie Liotta. Now, Miss Crosby, what's this all about? Calling Reggie Liotta a thoughtless jerk? Well, I hate speaking ill of the dead, but that's exactly what he was. That guy was just getting in my way and ruining my business. How is an author like Mr. Liotta ruining your tour guide business? Liotta would go on and on about Zerda, so much so that people stopped coming on my tours. I started losing income and I need to make a living too. What good is there crawling around in the ruins if nobody's paying? As far as I'm concerned, Reggie Liotta was a regular Klaatu, and I won't tell you what that means in Zerdan. Well, Miss Crosby, I hope you didn't resort to extreme measures to get Mr. Liotta out of your hair. First black mark against her. Now let's get the voice recorder out of the way. Pretty sure that's going to be the one that I'm going to be examining. IVP, ATX, 9 energy coming my way. Now that you've unlocked this voice recorder, Matthew, let's listen and see who it belongs to. Zerda's Return, Chapter 17. Judging from the deities depicted on these cistern columns, the Zerdans were a reverent culture. They obviously... That sounds like Reggie Liotta dictating his research, so this voice recorder belongs to the victim. Matthew, let's send this recorder to Gabriel and see if there's anything he can discover about the victim's profile. Nine hours, so we'll start that up. That is not right. Of course, I am out of school for the summer, so I don't have to worry about spending any cash or anything, unless I absolutely have to. I feel like I should, anyway. Okay. Looks like gum. Alright, Matthew, let's get that pink substance you collected off with the victim's manuscript under the microscope. Okay. I got all the stars, by the way. That's why I had 21 stars. Alright. There we go. Is it gum? Yep, chewing gum. I was right. That pink goo is chewing gum, Matthew. Who would spit that onto the victim's manuscript? Wait, you're right. Reggie Liotta's friend Allie Salinger was blowing bubbles when we spoke to her, so she's the one who wrote What About Me? Apparently, Allie Salinger had a bone to pick with the victim. Let's go find out why. Let's find out why. Miss Salinger, would you explain this message you scribbled on the victim's manuscript? You don't sound too impressed. What? How did you find that? Well, there's no sense lying about it now. The truth is, Reggie's newfound fame was going to his head. He gave me an advanced copy of his book, and when I looked at the people he thanked in the dedications, I wasn't one of them. So that's what you meant when you wrote What About Me? If it wasn't for me, Reggie wouldn't have been able to write that book in the first place. He floundered for years, struggling to get things together. I was always there for him, his constant rock through thick and thin. And what happens when Reggie finally succeeds? He drops me like dead weight, like I was nothing. Let's just hope he didn't drop a dead weight on him in return. I'll see you guys when the voice entries is over. See y'all then. Okay, folks, we've returned. Let's get the results of the voice entries from Gabriel.
I told him he ain't fought until he uses bare knuckles.
Matthew, Gloria, I heard you were underground when that sister nearly collapsed. I'm glad you're both alright.
I hadn't seen her for a few days.
Well, we're both dry now, at least. But my days of underground exploration are over. Now, what can you tell us about that voice recorder? It's been an exciting few hours, Matthew. This recorder's certainly given me a glimpse into a historian's mind. The entries are Reggie Liotta's private musings about his work and the people around him. Would you care to listen?
I'll give you a call when we get the results.
Unless there's something relevant to our investigation on there, we'll take a rain check.
Some bad news for you.
Well, there was an entry recorded a few days ago about one of your suspects. It's right here, Matthew.
On Saturday night watching the Knicks.
That fossilized loser from the museum, Jebediah Cobb, asked if he could read my manuscript. The fool actually thought he could contribute to my research.
412.
I told Cobb he could take his obsolete research and get lost. He was pretty mad, but who cares about a grumpy old man? So, Matthew, our victim and the museum's curator argued. There's so much for mutual respect between colleagues. Let's get Mr. Cobb's side of the story.
You said you're serious about something.
Well, what else do you say about the guy?
They travel all the time. They've been together a few years.
Well, that's strange because nobody else has ever mentioned it.
Ah, Senior Trooper Matthew. Did you know the Zerdan word for danger also means adventure? They were a magnificent society. What's the Zerdan word for explanation, Mr. Cobb? That's exactly what you owe us, considering you argued with the victim. Oh, so you know about our squabble.
Hey, Liv, Elliot.
That whole unfortunate incident would have never happened if that whippersnapper wasn't so pig-headed. I already told you I have extensive knowledge of the Zerdan. In fact, I literally wrote the book on the subject, The Lost City of Zerda. My research and theories have been the central resource for Zerdan historical study for decades. Then Reggie Liotta comes along with a new take on the Zerdans, and when you offered your expertise, he spat in your face. That must have bruised your ego. Bruised my ego? I was angry the young man could be so downright rude. I regretted even shaking the man's hand. I sanitized mine immediately. But did I feel threatened? Hardly. An upstart like him with this publicity events and websites. I've been an expert on Zerda for years. My book is history, not hype.
But they stopped. Hold up.
Now he's in the running.
He looks familiar. So let me see the closet.
While the upcoming release of Zerda's Return earned Reggie Liazzo public acclaim, it seems he wasn't very popular among those close to him. The victim's friend was angry he dropped her like a dirty rag, saying his newfound fame had gone to his head. Tour guide Laura Crosby believed the victim was costing her money, luring away her customers with his extensive knowledge of Zerda. Jebediah Cobb, who is an author himself, had little respect for the victim's research, saying Reggie Liazzo's publication is all sensation and no substance. But we still don't know who wanted the victim dead. You're right, Matthew. Both the killer and the victim visited the museum garden, so we should take another look there.
Today is going to help so many other people.
Targeted him for a reason. If we can figure out that why, we can close in on the hope for Angel of Death. Definitely sending a message.
What is she saying to us?
Criminal Minds, Suspect Behavior, Monday, 1:12 Central, on ION Television. Positively entertaining.
Let's hear it for price. Charm. Pop. Savory flavors won't stop. From new taste to favorite memories. New campfire meals for a limited time at Cracker Barrel. Enjoy every little taste.
Go.
Everything handled, already spoke to all state agents, granted an absolute forgiveness. Which is so smart on your guys' part. Like the fact that they'll just forgive you. 4 weeks without the car. Okay, yep, gonna.
With accident forgiveness, your rates won't go up just because of an accident. Switching to Allstate is worth it.
Well spotted, Matthew. This is a glossary of Zerdan terms. Those symbols are definitely from the Zerdan language. Proud soul body crushed. Why do these words sound familiar? Wait, Matthew. These are the words the killer wrote in that Zerdan threat to the victim. The proud will be crushed in body and soul. So this glossary belongs to the killer. Vacuuming up those black fibers could lead us right to them. And I agree, Matthew. Sifting through that pile of leaves could prove worthwhile. But we'd better hurry. There's a killer on the loose.
And improves function. Lyrica may cause serious allergic reactions, suicidal thoughts, or actions. Tell your doctor right away if you have these, no reverse depression, unusual changes in motor behavior, swelling, trouble breathing, rash, hives, blisters, muscle pains, fever, tired feeling, or blurry vision. Common side effects: dizziness, sleepiness, weight gain, swelling of hands, legs, and feet. Don't drink alcohol while taking Lyrica. Don't drive or use machinery until you know how Lyrica affects you. Those who had a drug or alcohol problem may be more likely to misuse Lyrica. With less pain,
Nice.
Matthew,
let's stay on the killer's trail and get these black fibers from the Zerdan glossary to the lab.
Before we pick them at the peak of freshness, for a smooth, refreshing taste and aroma in every cup of lifting.
Shop Mother's Day gifts that bring the whole family together. Take an extra $10 off your $25 purchase with coupon. No tasty pencil, styling value for all.
That's convenient, delicious. 10 layers of crunchy beef to fill you up with big carrots. When you're ready for that steam, we got your breakfast right here. Short breakfast, roast, big carrots.
Stone Club. Oh my god, Matthew. There's some sort of stone club under those leaves, and it's covered in blood. Martine said the murder weapon would be a heavy blunt object. This certainly fits the bill. Let's have Rita examine this stone club and see what she can tell us about it.
starting at $7.99 a month. The French girls yogurt is set in a glass pot for
15 hours, and I'll see you guys when both of these are finished. Catch you later. Okay, folks, we have returned, and we're now going to get the results of the black fibers first. Matthew, have I ever told you my name lends itself to one of the most popular tie knots in the world, the Winchester knot? Oh, here we go again. Hush, Amir. You see, Matthew, it's how I wear my own tie. A quick loop here, pull long end around the front, back around the collar, and voila, a perfect Winchester knot. This is riveting, Mr. Winchester, but I'm hoping that that's something to do with those black fibers Matthew found on the killer's glossary. Of course it does. Those fibers are black threads of silk, or to be more precise, finely spun silk, the material used to knit a black tie. The killer must have left some threads from their garment behind by accident. To their peril, Matthew, Reggie Liotta's killer will be fit to be tied when you catch up to them.
Hello? Wait, no, I ran into Riley Slade coming out of the subway. Is Riley a friend of yours? More like a friend of me now. What happened? Yeah, we both work for the same publisher.
And now the Stone Club, or should I say the Flintstones Club. Right on time, Matthew. I'll get the gory part out of the way first. I double-checked with the lab boys and they confirmed the bloodstain on the Stone Club is a match for the victim. So this Stone Club is definitely the murder weapon. And a magnificent one, and a magnificent weapon at that. According to my research, this is a Zerdan infantry club, brandished by soldiers in their army. This club could be centuries old. Who knows what battles it's seen? The warriors who have wielded it in their hands. I'm as enthusiastic as you are, Rita. But right now, we're more interested in the person who wielded it to murder Reggie Liotta. Well, at the base of the club, where the killer would have gripped it, I found traces of isopropyl alcohol, which in this concentration is the solution used to clean glasses. And one thing the Zerdans didn't do centuries ago was wear eyeglasses, which means your killer does. The killers made quite a spectacle of themselves at the Stone Club, Matthew. Their eyeglasses have given them away. Reggie Liotta's killers eluded us long enough, Matthew. Grab the handcuffs. We're making an arrest.
I wasn't supposed to get the diamonds out of my sight. How am I supposed to pay back the Marx Brothers?
I don't have insurance for that, but you need to tell me everything that you remember.
Okay, well, I went to go look at the diamonds, and I was nervous because I've never carried anything so expensive before. And they put me in a car and came in. Did you make it? Yeah, Terminal 4. And I must have checked in my bags because I had money.
Let's see.
Did you make it through security? I can't remember.
The airline verified Kelly got it.
Nope, not Steve Roy. It's definitely not Ali Salinger.
After that, Kelly had
it is the curator. Let me check. Yep, definitely not Laura Crosby. It isn't Jerry Miller. It is the curator. Jebediah Cobb, you're under arrest for the murder of Reggie Liotta. Me? A murderer? That's preposterous. We had our differences, but I wouldn't kill the man. Well, you blatantly threatened the victim, writing that Zerdan message on the sundial. I was speaking Zerdan when you were in elementary school, but that doesn't mean I wrote that message. But we know you bludgeoned Mr. Liotta with that stone club. Your glasses cleaner was all over the handle. Bludgeoned? How horrid! I'm a museum curator, not a savage. I abhor violence. But you checked the victim's pulse to make sure he was dead. We found your hand sanitizer on his neck. Admit it, Mr. Cobb. You were jealous of Reggie and his book, even though you said it was all hype and no history. It's exactly the opposite. I killed the man because he knew too much history. Too much history? What does that mean? The truth is, I did read Reggie's manuscript. He couldn't resist the chance to gloat, so he let me see it. I was horrified by the revelations he'd uncovered. His publication completely debunked all of my theories about the Zerdans. You see, my book purports the Zerdans were a patriarchal society. It was the basis for all my research on the subject. But Mr. Liotta had studied the resurfaced ruins and discovered they were a matriarchy after all. The Zerdan culture wasn't male-dominated whatsoever. So you killed him because he knew more than you? No! I had to silence him, stop him from publishing Zerda's Return. My life's work was a fraud. I couldn't let the truth get out. I had to keep it quiet. So I confronted him after the meet and greet, begging him to reconsider. But naturally he wouldn't. So I lashed out and grabbed one of the weapons and hit him. It was a reckless act of passion. Regardless of the threats I made, I didn't mean to kill him. Everything I've ever worked for, all I believed was a lie. I couldn't let it get out, you must understand. That's what the judge should decide. Jebediah Cobb, you're under arrest for the murder of Reggie Liotta. Jebediah Cobb, you stand before this court charged with the murder of Reggie Liotta. How do you plead? Guilty, Your Honor. I killed that young man. I didn't mean to, but his book shattered my world and everything I held to be true. He had to be stopped. That may be what you believe, Mr. Cobb, but murdering Mr. Liotta won't change the fact that he was right. And ultimately, your reckless act of violence was futile, because the truth cannot be silenced. Mr. Liotta's book will be published. Jebediah Cobb, I hereby sentence you to 10 years in prison for the murder of Reggie Liotta. 10 years? I'll probably die in prison. A defender of truth, a historian guilty of murder. What have I done? If there's one thing I've learned in my years in law enforcement, Matthew, it's that crime has no logic. A man in Jebediah Cobb's position, a curator at the Greensboro Museum, a historian and self-proclaimed defender of truth, murders a fellow researcher in the heat of the moment. All in a futile attempt to suppress what he knows to be true. But despite Reggie Liotta's murder, Zerda's Return will be published. The truth about the matriarchy of Zerda will see the light of day. Matthew, sorry to interrupt, but while we're on the subject of the Zerdans, something important has come up, and I need your help. And I'll see you guys for the moment of truth in 3 seconds. Okay, folks, you've returned. Before we start, let's take a look at the other ones. Steve Roy, no tie. Ali Salinger cleared early. Laura Crosby cleared from the start. Jerry Miller, no glasses. It was the curator. Now let's start the moment of truth, 3-6.
Success without integrity means nothing. Choose to strive for more.
Mr. Parker, what are you doing here? Please have a seat and you can tell us what you need.
Every day, be the man of today. Or spoken tongue.
What does Ray Parker want our help for? Senior Tripper Matthew, my wife told me you could assist with my Zerdan emergency. third an emergency. We'll do what we can, but you're the ancient civilization expert around here. It's about that book, Zerto's Return. Reggie Liato is scheduled to give a speech at its launch, but naturally his death means that won't be happening. Much to my surprise, Liato's publisher has asked me to deliver a speech about the book in his stead. I'm truly honored, but I've not even seen a copy of Zerto's Return, let alone read it. I need that book, but the publisher isn't answering his phone. I thought perhaps you could help me find a copy, Senior Trooper Matthew. You can try, Mr. Parker. Wasn't Mr. Liato's meet and greet event held at the museum, Matthew? Maybe you'll find something there. Excellent. I hope you don't mind me tagging along, Senior Trooper Matthew.
Okay, well, I'm sure a guy like you doesn't have any problem getting over. Just need to hear you side of the story. That's anything to help clear this up. Okay, so you meet Kelly in the bar at Kennedy, and you have a few drinks.
Right, and then my flight to Bogota was canceled. Checked out of the airline.
We did. We were grounded. Kelly's flight took off.
Yeah, when we were getting along, I suggested she come over to my house and she could take the flight the next day.
Pretty smooth?
Yeah, surprised me. She said yes, but we might stay over there.
There's security everywhere. Why didn't I fight back or scream or something?
She was totally into me.
Fine, Kelly.
She said she was attacking me in my house. I just checked the closest hospital person.
Just a one-night stand. Why bother?
I already told you. I just wanted to make sure that she was okay.
If someone might think that you just want to say,
yeah, of course.
There we go.
I remember that I didn't rape her.
Briefcase.
And I'd be off the hook. Keep wiggling.
see if she gets caught up in this.
All right.
Leaflet.
And we found blood on the sheet. Same type of
sarcophagus.
That's cool. This is exactly.
Great confirms your victim was mentioned.
Which is an
You might not remember for this. You mentioned he was on his way to Bogota.
petroleum
Wooden wheel.
So I ran Kelly's top swing for a treatment alkaloid called scopolamine and hit the jackpot.
Plumbing devils, brother. Scam artists.
Mr. Parker? I think we're in luck. This briefcase belongs to the victim's publisher, Steve Roy. There's got to be a copy of Zerto's Return in there. Diane says you're talented at breaking locks, Senior Trooper Matthew. A real crack shot, as the young people say. But you found something else, Matthew. That's a brochure for that cult, The Higher Truth. Your guide to sharing the higher truth. This appears to be some sort of internal recruitment brochure for the cult to gather more members. Dusting off this brochure could be our chance to learn more about the cult's methods, Matthew. And let's not forget about unlocking that briefcase.
If he uses cash, we'll never be able to trace him.
And he charges everything. No good. Tiffany's, Barney's, guys have license at 5-star restaurants he doesn't want to. So I might have another guy. I checked out his internet cache for searches of scopolamine and didn't find it. But I did find these.
Ultradown.net, sixsexvideo.net, Forcer.net.
R88.
Bitches do what you want when you license to register. He's got more than 200,000 pics and videos. It's quite straight back.
XME.
I found an encrypted partition on his hard drive.
An invisible drive.
Exactly.
That's Kelly Watson.
Good instincts, Matthew. There are copies of Reggie Liotta's book inside Steve Roy's briefcase. At last, Zerto's Return. Thank you for helping me find this, Senior Trooper Matthew. To be one of the first people to read it, I'm like the proverbial kid in a candy store. I'll need time to digest the contents of this volume, and naturally I should compile a presentation to accompany my speech. I'll keep it short and snappy, 3 to 4 hours at most. Maybe I'll go wild and prepare some slides in color this time. Let them see my whimsical side. That sounds great, Mr. Parker, but maybe we could get Kathy to help you put together a digital presentation. She's a whiz at that kind of thing. A wonderful idea. I shall proceed to her lab and peruse Zerto's Return, while she can assist me with the presentations.
They seem to be enjoying themselves.
That's just part of the act.
The role-playing effects. She played the role of the rapist. Is that how Kelly remembers it? No damn well she doesn't remember anything because you drugged her.
Wrong. She ate it up. They all did.
So you're saying these women consented? Absolutely. Then you want to tell me.
6 hours.
Put policy all around. Let's go, Eric. This interview's over. Ken Gray. Whatever I can do to protect it from Lauren's life, better start thinking about protecting your brain when the judge blasts this law. Let's see.
Always nice to see Lauren get along.
She's got let's have her fight back, and she gets the jury's gonna think she's right.
You have everything on tape. What more do you need?
There we go.
Who's gonna stop you from doing this
3.
again?
All right, Matthew. What can we learn about the Higher Truth recruitment strategy from that brochure? Let's see. Shine your light in the world and bring this truth to others. Their journey along the path to enlightenment begins today. It looks like the entire brochure reads like this, Matthew. So let's send it to Gabriel. Maybe he can work out what's going on inside their heads.
Double checking your order before it hits the road, so you get exactly what you want.
It's also 9 hours. 9 hours, I should say. And I've only got 2 already, and I've got 2 more crises to investigate, but that'll be later. We'll see y'all then. Okay, we have returned, and I'm gonna speed up the Victor's book. And there's 2.
My people like Gordon Garrison.
Should have heard of it right off.
Ah, Matthew, you're just in time to hear all about Mr. Parker's progress delving into Zerda's return.
He's as much a victim.
My word, Senior Trooper Matthew, it's exciting stuff. I frankly couldn't have imagined the secrets that have been uncovered. Did you know the Zerdans commanded an army of warriors made up entirely of women? Prior to the earthquake that ultimately decimated their city, the Zerdans were a truly formidable society. I don't doubt it, Mr. Parker. And look here, Senior Trooper Matthew, Mrs. Turner has done a tremendous job compiling a visual aid for my speech. It's like an overhead projector, but on a computer. What'll they think of next? In any case, the publisher finally contacted me. Mr. Roy wants us to meet him at once to see what I prepared. Alright, Matthew, let's go fill Steve Roy in.
Mr. Rollins, no one outpaces the hunt. I thought I was managing my moderate Crohn's disease. And I realized something was...
Ah, Senior Trooper Matthew. I've reviewed Mr. Parker's presentation about Zerda's return, and it will do wonderfully. Are you ready, Mr. Parker? Everyone is eagerly awaiting your speech. You're on in 20 minutes. What? So soon? But... It's alright. It's alright, Mr. Parker. You'll be fine. You're prepared for this, so get out there and knock their socks off. Very well, Senior Trooper Matthew. If you could fetch Diane, I'll get ready backstage. Before I forget, Senior Trooper Matthew, do take this Zerdan artifact. It might help illustrate Mr. Parker's speech. In a very real sense, one could easily say the Zerdan notion of infinity was in fact finite. By contrast, their conception of time...
Which is why I have extended this stuff. It's super fast, and you can control every device that
In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, Zerda's return, both in the literary and literal sense, marks a crucial turning point for Grimsboro.
Simple, easy, awesome. Xfinity, the future of awesome.
Wait, what? What's happening? Oh, very good, Mr. Parker. Riveting. So thorough. Do you really think so, Senior Trooper Matthew? Yes, honey. You were wonderful. Oh,
That's
Jones.
enough bandwidth for all your employees' devices and all your customers' devices. Switch now and get starting internet speeds that other providers can't beat at a price they can't match. New, faster, 200 meg Spectrum Business Internet. Now only $44.99 a month. Call 643-0067. Then get Spectrum Business Voice. Delivering more free business.
I hardly dare ask, Gabriel, but did you discover anything about the Higher Truth recruitment by reading through their brochure? I have, Matthew, and I must admit, it is troubling. You see, the Enlightened One not only instructs his followers to seek out the needy and the vulnerable, whom he refers to as the lost. Recruiters are encouraged to focus their efforts towards the wealthy and the well-to-do. No doubt so they can extort money from their newfound members. Well, they don't specifically demand monetary contributions. However, they do stress the importance of letting go of the material cares of this world. It says one cannot embrace the higher truth with open arms when one is gripping the burden of worldly wealth. I'm sure the Enlightened One is more than happy to relieve his flock of their worldly possessions. We really must learn more about the higher truth's ultimate agenda, but there's only so much I can glean from a brochure. We need to get information from the inside, Matthew, by posing as one of their members. You mean like an undercover operative? But who would we send? Me, of course. With my knowledge of philosophy and the ability to read people, I'm perfect for the job. After reading through that brochure, I know how they think. There's just one problem. While I can easily pretend to be needy and vulnerable, but how do I pretend to be rich? Smart thinking, Matthew. Martine used to be a world-class model. If anyone can help me blend in as a wealthy jet-setter, it's her. Talking faster with Martine? You and Gabriel can take it from here, Matthew.
I'll start by showing the jury who Joe Faggot really is.
I started watching Flashpoint trying to break out of the Coast Guard. A long time on the couch. And was interviewing with some psychologists. You like to go to gas? First just listening. Really listen?
We have an unorthodox request for you, Martine. I need to pass as an affluent jet setter to infiltrate the Higher Truth cult. I was hoping you could offer me some tips. Gabriel, a jet setter? Ooh la la, I love a challenge, Matthew, but this is a big task, even for me. Nevertheless, I've encountered a fashion disaster I couldn't fix. Fashion disaster? We can start with a new shirt, something more sharp-dressed, man, and less drab woolen cardigan. But the key is accessories, Matthew. The devil is in the details. A stylish watch, a pair of shades, that's what separates the men from the boys. I don't know, Martine. Are you sure? Bien sûr. Just put those on and strut your stuff. You'll have everyone thinking you live in Maple Heights. Alright, Matthew. I'll get dressed. Then we should head to the museum where you found that Higher Truth brochure. It's likely we'll encounter one of their members. But let's have a bite to eat first. Good idea. Are you sure about this attire, Matthew? I feel ridiculous. Alright, if you say so. Now let's see if we can spot a member of the Higher Truth. Ah, I believe I see someone wearing the cult's robes, Matthew. I'll try to catch his attention. Oh, what's a man like me to do in this empty and aimless existence? How can I find fulfillment? Here I am with all the money in the world, but it cannot buy me happiness. Who can give me the answers I seek? Pardon me, friend, but I couldn't help overhearing your musings. My name is Timothy from the Higher Truth, and I think I can help. Ah yes, the Higher Truth. I've heard of you. Do you really think you can help me? The Enlightened One promises wisdom to all those who genuinely seek the truth from above. We live as kindred souls with the Enlightened One, close to our hearts. That's why I wear the necklace of truth. Oh no! I've lost my necklace. The clasp must have broken while I've been wandering out here in the gardens. Since you reached out to me, Timothy, how about I return the favor? My friend Matthew and I will help you find your necklace here. Under a limited energy happy hour, that's why I sped it up. And of course I have the cat out. Ah. Right? Do you think these metal pieces are Timothy's necklace, Matthew? It must have been broken when he dropped it. Do you think... Oh, I got that one already. Good idea, Matthew. Repairing and returning this necklace might help us gain Timothy's trust more easily. That's more like it, Matthew. Now that this necklace is fixed, we can return it to Timothy. Here you go, Timothy. Your necklace was broken when we found it, but Matthew fixed it. Thank you, spirit brother. I see now that we're indeed kindred souls. If only restoring a broken life is as simple as fixing a necklace. But it is. The worldly wealth that is brought in nothing but emptiness can be put towards a greater cause. Will you join us? Will you free yourself of the shackles of earthly possessions? Your journey along the path to enlightenment can begin today. Yes, I am ready to open my heart, Timothy. I commit myself to discovering the higher truth. You have chosen wisely. The Enlightened One welcomes you and your wealth with open arms. So long, Matthew. I take my first steps towards discovering the higher truth. Money is meaningless to me now. I rid myself of its burden. Hopefully that they don't take Gabriel. They don't see through Gabriel's facade. What an exhilarating experience! Presenting a speech for the launch of Zerta's return. I cannot thank you enough, Senior Trooper Matthew. Yes, Mr. Parker. It was truly fascinating. Really, Jones? You'll have to tell me about it sometime. But right now, let's focus on the higher truth. Matthew and Gabriel advanced our investigation by coming up with a scheme to infiltrate the cult. Now that that he's joined the group, Gabriel can gather valuable information about the higher truth from the inside. We can finally find out what their ultimate goals are. Gabriel promised to report in as soon as he had infiltrated the group's headquarters. Ah, there he is now. Hello, Chief Parker speaking. Matthew, Chief, it's Gabriel. I can't talk for long, but I wanted to let you know that I'm at the Higher Truth headquarters. I've been accepted as one of their own, a genuine spirit brother. I even met with their leader. Nobody suspects anything. I'm not sure when I'll be able to contact you again, Matthew, but I'll report in as frequently as possible. Good work, Gabriel. Keep your wits about you and don't let your guard down for a second.
The governor signs a hidden bill that ups the penalties for people vulnerable to a victim. We'll tell you when it goes into effect.
Some big island residents who fled their homes because of lava flows and harmful water. Island News 5 is next.
The experience isn't about it's about witnessing something like
And it's on June 14th. That's a Thursday again. Okay, so for now. Three new ones. Four new ones. Right? 5 new ones. Two. I'll see you guys on June 14th. See y'all later.